So let's talk on the Pasha Vayeitseh. In general, I mentioned in the past that this Chumash Bereshis is also called Sefer HaYoshor. Sefer HaYoshor, the word Yoshor means upright. That is Yoshor, it's straight. And the reason it's called Sefer HaYoshor is because it is primarily describing the life of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and they are called Yeshorim. In addition to all the specific occurrences, such as the Akedah and the various Nisyonos that Avraham had, Yitzchak's birth, all the various specific things in Nisim and so forth, there is a common thread throughout the Chumash that simply describes to us the life of the Ovis. That gives us an experience, a vivid experience of how upright people behave under various circumstances. This Pasha Vayeitseh is, in this respect, extremely vivid. Pasha Vayeitseh speaks about Yaakov's life in an enormous amount of detail. And essentially it does not have anything of earth-shattering type of nisim or occurrences. It speaks about Yaakov's life since he left his father's home until he was ready to come back. And this was a period of 20 years that he spent in Lavan's house. And he describes the various things, 7 years, another 7 years, 6 years, the birth of all his children except for one, the Emohis, the mothers, how all the children were named, how Yaakov took care of Lavan's sheep. He describes his labor, how he toiled, the honesty, the dedication, on the circumstances where he was himself being actually mistreated and lied to and tricked and so forth, and yet he stood upright. This is a Yoshor. He was not fazed by all of that the circumstances and that was done to him. One the translational word? My pleasure. What is it? Honest. Huh? Honest. Truthful. Truthful. You know. It's spelled Honest. Find it there. And in the beginning, it tells us the first steps that gave Yaakov the strength to carry all that through. You learned yesterday the strength, the power, the moral strength. What's the matter?
No, it's my pencil. I need it dirty.
Okay. You have a pen for writing.
He's using it for others.
What?
He's using it for others.
For others, how he's writing? Okay, anyway. No mind. That's internal feuds. I don't get involved in. So, you learned yesterday in the Parsha, the beginning of yesterday's Parsha is Vayeitseh Yaakov Raglov. Yaakov lifted his feet, he picked up his feet. And Rashi says, what does that mean he picked up his feet? That he now, after what happened right before, he was now reassured and he felt encouraged and inspired, and that's as if he was walking like he was walking on air. He was carrying his feet instead of the feet carrying him, because he had that inspiration that he is going to be successful.
From Hashem?
Huh?
You said from Hashem you had the inspiration?
Yeah.
Right, and I'm going to explain what that inspiration is in a minute. That's what I'm leading to. Yaakov Avinu, before we get into this, we ought to reflect and understand who we are talking about. Yaakov Avinu is one, the third actually of the three Avos, of the three fathers of our nation, and the fathers of the world essentially. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avram, who was the first, the founder, he established the destiny, the purpose, the direction of this nation. And what was it? That the teaching the world about God and helping the whole world to recognize and to live according to God's principles. This was Abraham. He stood for this with a lot of sacrifice, self-sacrifice, and with great strength. Then came Yitzchak, and then finally came Yaakov. Yaakov was different than the previous two, than Abraham and Yitzchak. In that, Abraham and Yitzchak, even though Abraham actually dealt with various peoples and even was out of Eretz Yisrael many times, but basically Abraham lived in one area, and Abraham, generally speaking, had a peaceful life, successful, peaceful life. Yitzchak, even more than Abraham, Yitzchak never left Eretz Yisrael. He stayed in this place. And he was immensely wealthy, as Rashi says. Hashem blessed him with tremendous wealth. And he too was involved, surely, in engaging and teaching the world, but was all in a peaceful way. Yaakov, in contrast, was totally different. Yankov spent most of his life outside of Eretz Yisrael. And most of his accomplishment and achievement was done outside of Eretz Yisrael. To begin with, his children, his whole family was built outside of Eretz Yisrael, except for Binyamin, who was born on the outskirts of Eretz Yisrael. But basically, they're all outside Eretz Yisrael.
What's outskirts, like boundaries?
Boundaries, right.
The place where Rachel was buried is not considered part of Eretz Yisrael?
Well, this is the question. It's on the outskirts. It's on the boundary. His children, the Shvatim, by the time Yaakov returned back to Eretz Yisrael, many of them were already grown up. They were past bar mitzvah, many of them. And at that,
Where were they living? When they were just working for Levan in the field?
they were not working for Lavan. They were, as you're learning later on, they were tending to Yaakov's own sheep. You will learn later. All that occurred in Golos for Yaakov, outside of Eretz Yisrael. And during this whole time, Yaakov was working for his uncle, so to speak, Lavan, who was not an easy boss. And as a matter of fact, he was a very dishonest and difficult person. As you will learn later on, he could not hold by any contract. He made a contract with Yaakov, and a month later he saw that it's too advantageous for Yaakov, so he changed that. Then he changed that. 100 times he changed around his deals with Yaakov.
Never satisfied, no?
Throughout all that time, throughout all these uncertainties and difficult times, Yaakov did not get shaken. He stood steadfast. He did his thing to a total dedication and total honesty. And of course, as a result of that, he came home, as you will learn, with a healthy, strong family, all of them following in his footsteps. And also, God blessed him with tremendous wealth and success in general. But this was not done under normal circumstances. This was done, so to speak, in foreign territory, enemy territory. So Yaakov was the first one who was truly exposed to, he was thrown, so to speak, like the parachuters, behind the enemy line, to do his work in outside. What gave Yaakov this strength, this assurance? And I want to explain what I mean by strength. This is something which we all need to understand. Later on, much later, you learn in Mitzvah Hashem about the dinim of warfare. Because ultimately, a nation sometimes is called to go to war. And the Jewish nation is no exception. We had a lot of wars, even now in Eretz Yisrael, there are wars all the time, but even in the best of times, in David HaMelech's time, there were always wars. And the Torah tells us that when you go to war, you have to know that Hashem goes with you, and not be shaken. And the Torah tells us what should not be shaken, what you should you should be able to face without fear. It's interesting, if you look later on in Mitzvah Shem, you'll learn in Chumash Dvorim. You should face without fear the fanfare. What is a fanfare? Rashi explains over there that Achsisis Milchama, one of the strategies of warfare, especially in olden days, was to create an aura, to create an impression of fearlessness. So the enemy, the Goyim especially, had this thing. They would make their horses make noise, and make their horses stomp on the ground, and they would hit their shields and make tremendous noises. And the Torah says, don't be fazed by that. Now, fazed by that, I mean, you're afraid of a sword, you're afraid of a spear. What is this fazed by that? We have to understand this is an extremely important principle in life. The biggest difficulty that we face is not the actual difficulty, not the actual enemy. The biggest difficulty that we face is the doubt, the self-doubt.
Of what? Fear.
David HaMelech faced Goliath.
Yeah.
You know the story with David HaMelech and Goliath? Goliath was a giant, and David HaMelech was a little kid, and he faced Goliath. And Goliath said to David, "Who are you? I can just crush you like a little cockroach." And David said, "I'm not scared of you." This thing that David said, "I'm not scared of you," that as itself already removed the entire fear and doubt. They put him in his place. Who do you think you are? He says, "I'm going with Hashem's name, and I'm not scared of it." The same is true in our own lives. We have to understand. When we think in terms of the present, think in terms of the future, we think in terms of life. One of the biggest difficulties that we have to face up to is not to be scared of the unknown, that which I don't know, of the future, of the doubt. The doubt is the worst enemy that destroys a person's morale and strength. How, in fact, can a person overcome this? After all, one does not know the future. No one knows the future. You don't know what's going to happen the next minute, much less the next day, much less the next year or 10 years from now. And yet, we have to go on and do the best we can today without concern about 10 years from now. And when 10 years from now comes, we will do what we need to do then. What gives us the strength to be able to, so to speak, face the future without fear? This is the one principle that we learned in this parsha. When Yankee Avinu was coming out, he's walking by Vayeitseh Yankee went, and he came to this place, and Vayiga B'Amokim, he came to this place, and Hashem caused it that it should become dark, and he was tired, he had to lie down to take a rest, and it turned out to be the holy place of the Beis HaMikdash. And he slept there. And there he saw in his dream, he saw the ladder. The ladder that stands on the ground and is perched up in the sky. And on this ladder are walking up and down Malach. Angels are coming down, up and down. And these angels are coming to accompany Yaakov, accompanying him on his journey. And then Hashem speaks to him. And Hashem says to him, I will be with you, and I'm not going to let go until I will see to it that everything that I promised would happen, promised to your fathers about you will happen. Yaakov wakes up and he realizes that this is a very special place. So he repeats more or less what Hashem promised him, but he says certain words that we want to focus in. He says, if Hashem is going to be with me and He's going to watch me and so forth, and he says, V'hoyo Hashem li le'elokim, and Hashem will be to me my God. Now, what does this mean? There are many different explanations, insights in these words.
What was the term? What was the last thing you just said? That Hashem is with?
Aboya Hashem li le'elokim. Hashem will be my God.
Yeah.
What does it mean, be my God? So amongst the explanations that are given, that mentions in the Rebbe's Siches, as we said, there is no way that a person can know the future. Especially Yaakov is going into the house of Lavan, into this totally dangerous and unknown situation. What gives him the strength to face up to this? Without doubt, because doubt destroys everything. As we said, he picked up his feet, he was walking on air. This is the union that he felt, that wherever he goes, Hashem goes with him. Hoy Hashem li le'elokim. Even though this did not lighten his burden, as we see later on, he worked day and night, in cold and in heat. And he had to account for everything that was anything that was missing, he had to account for it. He had no leeway was given to him.
No break?
No break, right? He didn't get any breaks. So he worked very hard. But at the same time as he was working hard, he maintained this consciousness. He knew throughout this time that it is not his own strength that is carrying him. It is Hashem's strength that's carrying him. I told you the story recently. I repeat this recently a lot. The story with the Rebbe Maharash, who was climbing up the ladder. Everybody remembers the story, no?
Yeah.
You know the story?
No, I wasn't raising my hand. I think I heard it, but I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I'm glad you repeat it. The story is that the Rebbe Maharash was a young child, along with other boys of his age. They were playing in the courtyard of the Rebbe. And in this play, they were challenging each other. There was a ladder, a tall ladder, like the ladder of Yankiv, standing in the ground and perched in the heavens. A tall ladder, standing and bent over to the wall. And they were challenging each other who can climb higher on the ladder. Everybody knows you can climb on the ladder, but you get scared and you come down. And they were taking turns. Each boy was going up to a certain height, one higher, one less, and coming down. No one made it to the very top. Then came the Rebbe Maharash's turn. And he went up the ladder, went all the way to the top, and came down. His grandfather, or rather his father, Tzemach Tzedek, Rebbe Maharash was Ben Sekunim. He was born. He was the youngest, the last of many children. His brother was his teacher. You know what I'm saying? He was very and last of. He was born to Tzemach Tzedek at a late age. So Tzemach Tzedek was watching him doing this. Then afterwards, he asked him, "Tell me, how come all the other boys didn't make it to the top and you made it to the top?" Now I want you to listen. This is very important. And the Rebbe said, well, it's simple. They went up to a certain height and then they looked down. And when you look down, you get scared and you have to come down. I didn't look down, so I continued up to the very top. That was the story. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, this trick that you shouldn't look down, every one of the boys knew that. Every person knows that. Don't look down, because if you look down, your head begins to spin and you go down. So how come only the Rebbe was able to sustain this and do it, and the others didn't? And the explanation is as follows. This ladder was standing on the ground, which means that all the boys felt that what is supporting them, the ladder that's standing on the ground, it's the ground that's supporting them. They are essentially perched and held up by the ground, by the earth. And as they're walking up the ladder, they become further and further away from the base and into the space, and they kind of lose orientation. Where am I? Am I still on the ground? Am I still grounded? They have to look back to see how far am I from the base, from the nest. This is almost a compelling thing. If we rely on the physical worldly structure, it's compelling that we should look down and see, is it still real? Is it still there? Is the earth still there? The Rebbe had a different perspective on life completely, even as a child. He didn't rely on the earth to support him. Wherever he is supported by the Meibashter who's created the earth. So as he's climbing up the ladder, wherever he is, that's what the Meibashter is. He's not supported by the earth. He doesn't have to look back and see, where's my base? My base is wherever I am. And this is what carried him. And he didn't get phased, didn't get scared. Went all the way up to the top of the ladder and came down. I would suspect that the Tzemach Tzedek asked Rebbe Maharash the question, how come you made it and the others didn't make it? In order to, because Rebbe Maharash was still a child, in order to make him aware, to alert him to this fact. So he should realize this experience that he has had, that he doesn't have to look back. he can continue on straight without having to look back. This is what Yaakov had gotten from that episode. Voy Hashem li l'elikim, Hashem will be with me. My God means that wherever I will be, this will be my base. I don't have to look back. How is this working out? How is it possible to go on? Every day you go and make the next step. How can you make the next step? I can make the next step right now, and the Rebbe is going to hold me up, and then we'll go to the next step. No concern about, oh, look how far I am from where I came from. What does that have to do where I came from? Am I solid over here? Are things okay? Let's go. With this principle, as I said, in this V'hoy Hashem Lilu Rikim, these words there are many meforshim, but this is one inyan that the Ramban says and the Rebbe explains in the Sikha. V'hoy Hashem Lilu Rikim means that this is going to be that which is going to sustain me throughout my journey. And as a result of that, Yankee was able to go straight, and he was in full self-awareness. As you've learned already, what was the first thing that Yankee did when he came to Choron? He came to Choron, what was the first thing he did? He saw the shepherds lying around the well. And he said to them, hey, you guys, it's the middle of the day. Why are you sitting around? Take the sheep to herd, to graze. So they said, no, we can't, because we can't open the water. But what actually conspired over here? He's a stranger. He doesn't know anything what's going on over here. Doesn't know anyone. And he comes from a strange land alone. Empty-handed. Yankov came completely empty-handed. Didn't have a penny to his name. And he comes there, and these are, so to speak, old citizens sitting by the well together. And he is already trying to understand what's going on. He's giving them instruction. Be honest. If you're workers, you have to go and herd the sheep. In other words, Yankov had his full person with him. And his person is that whenever he saw or he suspected that something is amiss, something is not right, he has to see to it that it gets corrected. These shepherds had nothing to do with him. He's not responsible for them. But he is responsible essentially for the entire world. Wherever he is, Hashem is with him. And therefore he has to bring Hashem's name and Hashem's principles and goodness and truthfulness wherever he is. He didn't give himself a thought, hey, before you speak, how do you know? Maybe these guys are going to get angry at you. Well, who are you to intrude? He did his thing. As a matter of fact, they actually accepted what he said. They recognize, hey, you're right, except that we can do it now. With this principle, Yankov carried out his mission in Choron for 20 years, with dealing with his father-in-law, with all the dishonesty and everything that was going on. And with Hashem's help, he was able to leave there and come out whole, unblemished, with his entire family, with his entire herd, with all his wealth and everything. As I mentioned before, Chumash Breshis is a Sefer HaYoshv. This is giving us a chunk of our forefathers' life, mode of life, his attitude to life, his attitude to the world, his stance in his life. This is for us. This is not only for us to learn and emulate, but this is what was inherited to us. This is what's bequeathed. This is who we are. We are his children. We look at the world exactly the same way as he did. We are also fearless. We also know that Hashem Lilokim, that we are carrying out our task in the world with exclusively on the basis of Hashem's help. This is true throughout our history. I don't have to tell you, our history is full of unbelievable, miraculous salvations that the Jewish people have gone through. All the trials and everything that we went through, that we should survive materially and spiritually, is a miracle beyond belief. This is, so to speak, carrying on Hashem Lilakim, God's presence with us. And then coming down, each one of us, every individual person, in his own private life. Each one of us in our own private life. And this is the point which I want to discuss a little bit, so I become aware what strength we have to carry on and to do what we need to do.
For what strength you have to carry on?
I'm saying that I want to discuss and point out this principle to understand where we have the strength to carry on.
Say from
Yankee, right.
To God.
Just like the story with the Rebbe Maharash sounds like a child's play. But this child's play, it's amazing that only this child was able to do it. And the other child couldn't do it. It takes this insight, it takes this deep faith and deep clarity of reality of life, to understand that you as a Yid, as a Jew, no matter where you are, you are in yeshiva, you are in the street, you are on the train, wherever you are, where you are at work, this is only the superficial, the externals, so to speak, the geographic location. In reality, what is it that carries you and gives you the strength to face and do your duty and carry through your task? It is the fact that you have Hashem's support. Now, the Rebbe explains in Tanya that every Yid has two nefoshes, two souls, essentially. The soul is what's called the spiritual strength that a person has in life. And he says that these two nefoshes, that one of them is called a godly soul. And this nefesh olekis. What is the significance of a godly soul? What's a godly soul? So you learn many things about godly soul. One principle of the godly soul is godliness is that which is indestructible. This is the principle of godliness. It is what it is, and it cannot possibly be destroyed. This is a godly spark that is within each one of us. And a Yid, by nature, has a sense of strength that he can carry through and under any circumstances. When we are in the stage that we are here in yeshiva, Bochrim were sitting and learning in yeshiva at various ages. Some are younger, some are older, and they begin to consider, they begin to consider and say, okay, look, ultimately I'll have to establish myself in the world. And in the world, there are so many different pressures. You have to deal with all kinds of different circumstances, different people, and I have to get into the workforce. How am I going to do this? I'm not preparing myself, so to speak, for being part of that system. So it is important that we understand and reflect. And just like you saw a letter from the Rebbe about education. There was a question somebody asked to the Rebbe that one school has a better education than the other, educationally wise, but the other school is certainly much more Yerushalayim. But still, I need an education. So the Rebbe says, in this letter, it says, you're missing the whole point of education. The point of education is to reveal your spirit, to reveal the spirit of your soul. To learn that 2 times 2 equals to 4, these are my words. This is child's play. The computer also knows that 2 times 2 equals to 4. A human being is supposed to know what life is about. A human being has to be in touch with this godly spark. He has to know what his task in life is, what his purpose is. And only by knowing this can he carry on his life and face all the difficulties. Like these boys, looking at the ground and relying on the fact that the ground is going to hold you up, it's just not going to work. You're going to get scared and come down. What's going to hold you up? If you know that whatever you want, the Rebbe is there. You have a godly spark with you. This is the only thing that can carry a person through life. I'm aware, I've been with students of all ages for many years, students and balabatim, people of responsibility, of family and all that. there's always that little voice in the back saying, you know, you're going to get lost over here. What's happening? And it destroys a person's spirit. The worst thing that can happen to a human being is if his spirit is being tampered with. If he doesn't have, that's what it says in this pasuk. Vayisor Yankiv Raglov. Yankiv lifted his feet. He didn't let his feet carry him. The feet can only carry you on the ground. That doesn't get you any place. His spirit lifted his feet. That's how he's able to go through to Lavan and to Haran and to carry through all the things that he has to do. Okay, stop. I apologize.
All right. Hashem wanted it.
The point which I want to make practically over here is we have to be examining ourselves on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a constant basis. If anything begins to bother, to annoy us, in terms of, I'm sorry. Oh, you want to pick it up?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any doubts, anything that begins to annoy the person in the doubt, says that Amalek, Hashem has declared Amalek as the eternal enemy. What's Amalek? You heard of Amalek, everybody, right? What was terrible about Amalek? Huh? They called us so. Amalek is that element in the person that throws a doubt. That puts a doubt, a question. Are you going to be able to make it? What are you doing? This can weaken a person to the point where he can't go on. He falls down. And he falls down spiritually, he can fall down to all kinds of different low stages, looking for ways to strengthen himself from the world, from the earth, instead of him carrying his feet, he falls down to the feet. It is extremely important, especially young people who have, so to speak, the whole future in front of them. Uncertain, you don't know what's going to be, how is it going to work out. And each one has what's called their peckle, their difficulty, their circumstances, their reason for doubting, chas v'sholom. And that can be very disturbing. And if one allows himself to think of these doubts, he can, and I said this can disturb his spirit and can draw him down spiritually and physically where he should lose his status, lose his level of that he attained. There is a phenomenon. It's an amazing thing. There are occasions where a person can be physically perfectly healthy. I mean, literally perfectly healthy. A clean bill of health. And he's incapable of lifting his hand. It's not a joke. This is really things that happen. If a person allows himself to be influenced by the question of doubt, how is it going to... In other words, if he doesn't have this spirit, He doesn't have the spirit of Hashem Lilelikim to know that Hashem is the one who carries the world. Sometimes our flesh eyes are not able to detect and to see where that spirit is. But it is there. And the proof of the fact is, I have no problems making the next steps. What are you concerned about? Make the next step, you'll see right. How does a person climb up a mountain? One step at a time. And every step he makes, he's a step higher. And his horizon broadens. I didn't see before, make one step higher, all of a sudden I see miles further than I saw before. The most important thing in all education and everything is to develop one's true spirit of life. To be confident about life, to be confident about Jewish life, about godly presence in life, and to be confident that whatever task we have, we will accomplish. We definitely can accomplish. And this is what I mentioned to you before, but when the Eden had to go to war, the Kohanim used to go out and speak to them and say to them simple things. Just don't pay attention to these noises that they make. Don't be fazed by the size of their horses. To us, to you, I say, don't be fazed by the size of the world. Don't be fazed by the fact that you think that there is, you have to break through all kinds of different barriers. Wherever you need to be, you will be able to be there. Chas v'sholom, ever to lose faith, to lose confidence, to lose this sense that Hashem Lilelikim, that can destroy the best of us. And no matter how gifted and what kind of gifts one has, I'm sure if you know, I certainly know people who have all kinds of skills. All kinds of skills. He's an engineer, he's a mechanic, he is a builder, whatever it is. And nothing happens. He's not getting to first base. That's not what makes the world go around. That's not the source of your success. And this is not the source of your spirit. This is not what's going to give you, what's going to lift you up and put you on the road, so to speak, on the path of your life. We must maintain a continuous movement upwards. And every little notch, every little move upwards, as I said, opens up a completely new vista and a completely new view of the world and of your life. The confidence of spirit is the most important aspect for future success. And we can take an example, a vivid example, from our shluchim, from the Rebbe shluchim. I know shluchim who went to Italy, shluchim who went to Venezuela, who went to Uruguay, who went to countries that not only they didn't know the customs and so forth, they didn't know the language. Nothing. And they come there with the spirit, and they lift up the whole country. Literally. Our children, and Mitzvah Hashem, any one of you, none of our children went to college, went to university to be able to deliver big speeches and talks. They go, I know from my own children, they go and overnight they become big speakers. The whole town comes to listen to them. It's not because they know how to speak. It's because they know how to think. Because they know how to live. This is the primary thing which we are looking to accomplish here. V'hoy Hashem Nil Elikim was Yaakov Avinu right in the beginning of his journey out. He said, this is what is going to carry me through. And this is what carried him through. And as a result of that, he was able to face everything. Never a step back. We never step back. We always go forward. Sometimes we take a big step, sometimes a small step. But we look forward because we know where we're going. The Rebbe should help each one of us, each one of you. Should maintain the spirit. Never allow doubt to set in. Never allow to be dispirited, to fall down in spirit and to look for other ways to inspire you. Inspiration comes exclusively from this faith, from the truth of the faith that we have. This is the only real source of inspiration. There is none other. This inspiration is really something which is with you wherever you go, up the ladder, down the ladder, in the air and on the sea. Makes no difference. This is the real thing. And with this, with Hashem's help, each one of us will meet Hashem, gain and accumulate as much knowledge and as much strength as they can here during the opportunity to learn, and eventually, Mitzvah Hashem, go out and build their own homes, build their own families, and be successful in all that they do, and have a happy and successful life.